2, 3, 4. Verse. Pre-chorus. Chorus. Turnaround. Verse. Pre-chorus. Chorus. Breakdown. Bridge. 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 Build. Bridge. Build. Lamp. Milk.
Hey everybody, My name is Mark,
And I'm Ben.
and we're here just today to break down a little bit about that song that we just worked through, Love is Calling Out. Ben just played it. You know, that song was pretty cool to see the different parts. Ben, from a studio perspective, it's always kind of eye-opening because it's a lot more simple maybe than you might think. There's a number of pieces that are moving, but a lot of them are kind of in and out in different spots, and there's very few things that start from the beginning and play all the way through
For sure.
to the end. The sounds that we used, they were from Omnisphere and Keyscape. Those were the primary two places, and we're actually going to make available the resource of a main stage session that has those patches loaded up, as well as a spreadsheet that we've put together that just breaks down what sounds and patches were used for each sound, for each song. That's really cool to kind of look at it from that way. But in our live context, oftentimes we don't have 4 keys players. Rarely, ever, never do we have 4 keys players. We have tracks that we can use to supplement. But Ben, would you walk us through the first thing, just what parts you actually would play live and what you'd leave in the tracks, and even how you'd approach putting together a session in main stage for a song like Love is Calling Out?
Absolutely. Well, I guess the great thing about the live thing is when you're looking at studio stuff, you're just taking like a single part and doing that stuff. But the cool thing about live is you can start to layer things, and you can start to kind of create something that works better for your environment. And so I created just like a template for when I get going with the sounds that I want to use and stuff. And so this is what it is right here. And a lot of times, depending on the song, it works really well to just start there. And a lot of times this is actually just what I use. So I have a piano sound, but then there's also a pad and an organ that I can bring in later in different songs.
So the pad's on all the time underneath the piano, but you've got a little bit of flexibility with how you can even open it up to create a little more dynamics. Would you show us how
Exactly, sure, yeah. So I have my pad here, but then I have it just set up on the mod wheel to kind of change the sound of that I got. So I can use that for a lot of different things. And then I can also bring in an organ. And then I have just a rotating speaker speed thing, so I can do stuff with that too.
Okay, now Ben, you use that on the knobs, your infinity knobs, not on your sliders. Walk us through just kind of a little hack trick on why you do that.
So when I first started, I was using the sliders, and I even set it up. So everything that I do, I try to kind of make it visual on main stage as well, so it makes sense to me. But I went away from using the sliders and moved to the knobs, because when I would set a slider, when I would go to another patch, I'd have to kind of reset this really quick to get it to the right levels of that. Or otherwise, say I wanted something down here, but the last song I had it there. When I bumped it, you get this. Yeah, exactly. And so these knobs are actually infinity knobs, so they'll just spin and spin. So now whenever I turn one of these, it just kind of catches where it was from the last patch, and so it just makes it so it's more seamless.
So if you're gonna buy a new MIDI controller for live, infinity knobs is a good trick. You also mentioned patches. Do you often change patches between inside of a song, or do you typically come up with one thing per song, or how do you approach that?
Yeah, good question. So I think that the best way to approach a song is to not be switching in main stage or in Ableton or anything like that within the song. I try to create all the sounds that I need to fit on a 61 key or an 88 key or whatever you're using. And so if the song has a lead line that is a synth thing, I'll go in and I'll change, maybe get rid of the Steinway piano that I have on the top, which is right now just doing an octave thing. I'll go in and switch that out for the synth line from the song, and I'll go and grab the patch that we actually used for that to be able to add that.
That's super cool. Well, the thing I love about this patch is, it allows you to be flexible as a keys player, so that in a moment where somebody says, hey, would you just throw a pad under this section, you have got a basic thing that you can go to, that you're not just going, oh shoot, I have to go create a thing. You've got it already there. Now when you get to a live setting, you have the benefit of using something in tracks. What do you typically always play live?
Yep.
And what do you leave in tracks? Do you double things? Because typically there's this mindset like I have to play everything. But that's not actually true. It actually doesn't feel fuller the more that you try to play. It's actually better to probably focus on less and do it really well.
Yep,
What's
for
your
sure.
approach with that?
Yeah. So I guess when I first started playing keys for church, I was trying to cover everything, and it kind of got me in trouble and stuff because I was focusing more on playing all of this stuff and not focusing on what was really important was playing the parts and playing them accurately and well. And so I would be trying to play ARPs, and I'd be trying to like add extra lead lines and, try to make it really, really full and all this stuff. And I think what I realized is when I started to go, okay, I want to just create something that can complement what we have and what was available because of tracks and multi-tracks. I started to figure out, okay, what I want to cover every single time is the keys, so the piano.
So if there's a piano, there's a Rhodes, there's a main part that it anchors to, you play that.
Yep, for sure. That's something that you just want to make sure you're taking care of. As far as ARPs go, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out slaving or triggers or different things like that. The reality is that it's just going to sound better in the box, like in Ableton. Yep, all set up that way. And so I never really play ARPs anymore. And then I try not to double stuff that will be on the tracks. And so if there's a synth line or something like that, I'll typically ask, okay, can you take this out and I'm going to cover this. Okay. I definitely wouldn't double piano parts. I would have them remove that.
And when you do that, you said earlier that you'd substitute your Steinway. So you basically have these top keys set to be an octave higher. So you're saying you'd put that lead line synth sound up here so that as you're playing the bulk of the song in mid-range, you don't touch it and you don't have to turn anything on or switch patches. You literally just go up an octave and a half and you're now in that land.
Exactly.
That line.
Yeah, for sure. And that seems to work really well for me.
Cool.
Where I'm not having to like jump in between stuff, just moving my hand from here to there. It seems a lot easier.
Super cool.
And then the only thing that I double up on or don't feel bad doing is I have a pad that I can change how much or how little I have in that patch. Because pads, there's typically, 4 or 5 pads going on in a song. Maybe they're even lumped together in a track, but there's a lot happening. And so pads seem to kind of just, work together and stuff. And so I typically don't have them take them out of that. But yeah, so for this song, I was able to kind of stay close to home with the template that I use.
Yep.
It so happens that this template that I use, the Keyscape Softest, is actually the piano tone that we used for the recording, which is great. So instead of spending all this time creating this patch and trying to figure out how I can play the 5 different things, I said, okay, what's important to it? I want to make sure that I play the piano part really well. And I want to make sure that there's pads. And then I even, to kind of bring it to the next level, I add the organ as the song goes on later on in the song. In the bridge, I kind of start to bring that in just to kind of create more live, that live feeling. And we just played this last weekend at church. And this is the exact patch I used and how I used it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And so instead of, spending all my time creating this patch, I already had it. So then I could start to go into it and really listen to like the voicings of how these chords are played and not just playing, a regular E minor or whatever, but going, okay, how is this recorded? What's the feel for it?
And
Yep, exactly. And just starting to understand, okay, there's always, different notes in there in the chords and stuff.
Would you play through even just that last chorus where you've got, the piano, you're bringing that pad in, and even you kind of think you said you bring that organ in at some point.
Yep.
What's your approach? Because I don't know if there's technically organ in that song.
Yeah.
But in a live setting, you're kind of simplifying, and it probably just gives that last chorus a little bit of a lift. Where do you bring that in? How do you approach that?
Yeah. So in the bridge, as it starts, it's kind of got a down vibe where I'm playing through the chords. I'll go through that twice, kind of deal, and then I'll start to add it in here, just bring it in a little bit. as the dynamics are starting to pick up. And then, yeah, so then I'll kind of start to add a little bit more to it. And then into the chorus. So yeah, you have like a, you kind of get that
Yeah.
extra bump at the end of the song or whatever
That's cool.
to add stuff. So
You know, you said you said the question that you would come to this with is what's most important, and I think that's a great way for us to approach a song like this or almost any song. Oftentimes we want to come to it and ask like, what's the coolest thing that I can play?
yeah,
What's the coolest part that's happening? What's the most exciting to play? But if we go, what's the most important? And what's the simplest way that I can do that well? I heard somebody say once, you know, if you're in question about what to play the simplest thing
yep,
and then play half of that. Like,
Right.
give it not too much, but let it actually have room to breathe.
Yep.
And as a keys player, you cover so much mid-range with all the pads and the pianos and everything. Guitars, pianos, vocals, even drums, everything's in that mid-range. So
Yeah.
being mindful of not giving it too much, but giving it enough of the right things,
the right things
is
yeah,
important.
for sure.
So cool.
And when you kind of get rid of the distractions of, oh, I have to cover 5 or 6 things,
Right.
you can just focus on
Yeah.
the right things, the one
Love
or
that.
2 things. I mean, that changed it all for me. You know, was just when I go, okay, I can lay down I can now cover 16 parts. I
Right.
kind of got rid of that mindset and said, okay, how can I play this the best and most accurate way?
Because you're not less of the keys player if you play the main part and either disregard the other part or let the tracks carry it.
Yep.
We'd actually rather approach it and say, let's do this really well.
For
and
sure.
Let's do it simply and let's do it with excellence and serve the song
Yep.
and serve the moment. Because at the end of the day, it's not about whether we play the parts right or our contribution. It's about the bigger picture that we're a part of, which is what's happening in the room with people, the person who's coming for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not about how cool your synth patch is or how cool your keyboard looks. It's really about that person meeting Jesus. So thanks, Ben. Thanks,
Cool.
everyone.
Yeah, I got one more thing to say too. So almost everything is stock main stage.
That's great.
Here, the only thing that we're using in this is this keyscape. But you can create a really, really good Steinway sound with just stock stuff. There's a Steinway Grand, which I have in the top layer up here. But you can go in and you can mess with it. You can get more reverb and do some stuff to make that sound really good too.
That's awesome.
And I mean that all comes stock in main
And that's
stage.
actually a great point. We'll make your patch available, but we'll also make a version of that available that has that stock Steinway.
Yeah.
Where if you're just like, man, I don't want to go buy extra plugins. I want
Yep.
to get main stage for $30 and be ready to rock.
Yeah.
You'll be literally out the box, ready to go and ready to go for any weekend. So
Yep.
thanks, Ben.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks,
and we just
guys.
want to encourage you, continue doing what you're doing, and let's do this together. Have a good one.